The first section of the story unfolds with Mike McCann, seen engaging in a perilous rock climb. He managed to reach the summit with minimal safety gear. A few days later, Mike sought help from a psychiatrist, revealing that his extreme activities were a desperate escape. He was still grappling with profound depression following the death of his younger brother Gertie, a special forces soldier who died while on duty. Overwhelmed by memories, Mike decided to move house. While packing, he discovered a letter from his late brother, which contained a final will. Gertie wished for his ashes to be scattered on Mount Everest. Without a second thought, Mike immediately purchased a plane ticket to Kathmandu, Nepal. Meanwhile, Rudra Yash, a menacing mafia figure, was seen vehemently expressing his frustrations regarding a controversial dam project he intended to build in a village in Nepal called Kodari. He claimed this project would create new jobs for local residents. However, this claim was met with skepticism, as such projects often lead to the exploitation of local populations. A brave woman fiercely opposing the dam project approached Ganesh Rai, a representative from the town's elder family, to voice their dissent. Ganesh stepped forward, asserting that the river had been the lifeblood of the Kodari people since ancient times, and he loudly led the residents in rejecting the dam project. The much-anticipated city elder, Ganesh's father, was still en route by bus. However, mid-journey, a large truck suddenly blocked the road. The truck aggressively pushed the bus until it plunged into a ravine. News of the devastating accident reached the elder's grandson, Vijay. He immediately rushed to his father, Ganesh, confirming his grandfather's death. Vijay was convinced this was no ordinary accident, but a premeditated murder orchestrated by Rudra. He also believed that he and his father would be his next targets. The film then returned to Mike, now in Nepal, carrying an urn with his brother's ashes. Upon arrival in Kathmandu, Mike was guided to his hotel to meet his climbing guide, Dani Yangchen. Dani, a woman of mixed Malaysian Sherpa descent. Mike and Dani then head to the terminal, as a bus was the only way to reach the Mount Everest area. During their journey, Mike discovered Dani was a former Marine, further highlighting her formidable strength. At the terminal, Dani and Mike boarded a bus, the Kiwi Express, driven by the spirited Spike, an old Australian man. Among the other bus passengers were an American professor, Evan Myers, and his tech-savvy daughter, Star, who also planned to climb Mount Everest. On the way, Mike had a brief conversation with Spike about machinery, revealing Mike's past as a veteran truck driver with experience operating heavy equipment. The scene then shifted to Vijay, who was at the market picking up essentials. His father, Ganesh, urgently called him, ordering him to come home immediately, fearing that the longer Vijay was out, the greater the threat to his life. Vijay quickly flagged down the bus Mike was on. Unbeknownst to him, he was being trailed by two mysterious figures named Jeet and Yug. Jeet subtly offered a cigarette to Vijay, but he, being alert, immediately refused. This rejection seemed to infuriate Jeet, who suddenly attacked Vijay, knocking him unconscious. Yug then brandished his gun, pointing it at the passengers, while Jeet confiscated all their cell phones to prevent any live streaming. After that, Jeet forced Spike, the bus driver, to change the bus's destination from Mount Everest to Kodari. It quickly became clear that Jeet and Yug were hitmen dispatched by Rudra with the mission to capture Vijay. Refusing to submit to the attacker, Mike and Dani Yangchen began to devise a plan for resistance. The moment Jeet and Yug let their guard down, Mike and Dani sprang into action. As a trained soldier, Dani swiftly took down her assailant. To everyone's astonishment, Mike revealed himself to be an expert in martial arts, joining the fray. In the intense struggle, Yug was killed, while Jeet was paralyzed and apprehended. Unfortunately, a sudden tire burst caused the bus to swerve wildly, nearly plunging into the ravine. Passengers scrambled to safety, but Mike hesitated. His priority was the urn containing his brother's ashes, which had rolled precariously to the back of the teetering bus. Despite the imminent danger, Mike's quick thinking saved the urn, and he managed to get off the bus safely just before it teetered further. Shortly after, local police, led by Captain Shankar, arrived on patrol at the scene, securing Jeet. Meanwhile, the bus passengers found refuge in a nearby village while the damaged bus underwent repairs. Evan expressed concern about Vijay's condition. With Dani acting as a translator, he questioned Shankar, but the officer's evasive movements and answers sparked suspicion in the professor. Evan, realizing their location, knew they were in Kodari, an area notorious for being sparsely populated because its land was taken over by the Mafia to construct the largest dam in the Himalayas. Soon, a replacement bus arrived to continue their journey. However, Evan refused to board. His mind raced with the oddities surrounding Shankar's arrival and behavior. He also found himself deeply suspicious of a heavily guarded warehouse nearby, manned by armed police. Evan's instincts proved correct. Vijay was indeed being held hostage in that very warehouse. Rudra himself arrived specifically to intimidate Vijay, demanding to know his father's whereabouts. Vijay remained defiant, refusing to reveal anything. Frustrated, Rudra handed the young man over to Shankar. It was then revealed that Shankar was a corrupt police officer, secretly a member of Rudra's Mafia syndicate. Outside the warehouse, Evan recounted the grim situation in Kodari, explaining that Vijay's family refused to surrender their land for Rudra's dam project. This defiance made Vijay and his father, Ganesh, prime targets for Rudra, as they were obstructing a multi-trillion-dollar mafia enterprise. Hearing this, Mike immediately decided not to take the replacement bus. Donnie and Evan, along with Evan's daughter Star, also chose to stay. Evan outlined his daring plan to rescue Vijay from Rudra. Donnie expressed doubt, acknowledging they were up against a mafia. However, Mike confidently assured her he had seen worse. Without further delay, Mike, Evan, and Donnie embarked on their mission. Before entering the warehouse, they swiftly neutralized the corrupt police officers who were on guard outside. After successfully entering secretly, that's where they saw Shankar cruelly torturing Vijay, demanding to know his father's whereabouts. Mike swiftly attracted Shankar's attention, while Donnie quickly untied Vijay. Moments later, Rudra and his men appeared from another room within the warehouse. As Rudra attacked, Evan boldly introduced himself as an American ambassador, threatening to expose Rudra's crimes to international organizations. But Rudra, true to his cruel mafia nature, remained fearless. He shot Evan right in front of everyone, without the slightest hesitation. The situation escalated dramatically. Mike astonishingly revealed himself to be an expert marksman in addition to his wrestling skills. After quickly eliminating several of Rudra's men, Mike rapidly caught up with Donnie and Vijay. They hastily boarded the bus, which Spike was driving. Rudra and his crew blocked their path and mercilessly unleashed brutal gunfire on the bus. In the chaos, Spike was shot, leading Mike, the veteran truck driver and expert in large vehicles, to immediately take the wheel. He drove recklessly, desperate to escape. After escaping Rudra's relentless pursuit, Donnie urgently attempted to tend to Spike's wound, but it was too late. Spike had lost too much blood. Unbeknownst to everyone else, Mike also sustained a gunshot wound to his stomach. Encountering a fork in the road, they needed directions from Vijay, who was knowledgeable about the area. Initially, Vijay suggested a route to leave the city, but Mike insisted on first saving Vijay's father, Ganesh, even though it meant traversing steep and treacherous terrain covered in ice. Spike suddenly requested to be dropped off there, feeling he was no longer able to assist them and that his time was running out. He didn't want to die on the bus that had been his companion in his old age. Mike and the others were forced to continue their journey without Spike. To reach Ganesh's hiding place, they had to navigate a steep road impassable for normal vehicles. Luckily, they found heavy equipment that could assist them. But things suddenly took the darkest turn. Just as they believed they had succeeded, the equipment suddenly malfunctioned, causing panic as they faced the danger of a freefall. The only solution was to detach the rope holding the bus. This required immense skill to control a bus traveling at high speed, a task Mike, as an expert driver, was uniquely capable of. Though the bus tumbled eventually, it was better than a freefall. At the bottom of the ravine, many bus carcasses were seen, victims of less skilled drivers. Faced with the urgent need to continue, Mike invited the others to repair the bus. Meanwhile, at another location, Rudra and his men discovered Spike in his death throes. Rudra demanded to know Vijay's whereabouts, but Spike, with his last breath, refused to reveal anything. Officer Shankar then brutally hastened Spike's demise. Rudra and his crew continued to track the bus's path. They stopped when they found the heavy equipment that Mike and his companions used to descend the difficult terrain. At this moment, Rudra, carrying Vijay's confiscated cell phone, received a message from Ganesh containing directions to his hiding place. The message intended for Vijay was now in Rudra's hands. Rudra immediately dispatched his top hitman to eliminate Ganesh. On the other side, Mike and his group were frantically working to repair the bus. To power it, they needed an engine from another vehicle wreck. Mike, demonstrating his intelligence as a mechanical engineer, swiftly worked on the repairs. It didn't take long before the bus was operational again. At the same time, Rudra's hitman located a cottage, suspected to be Ganesh's hiding place. However, the hitman stumbled into a trap and a scarecrow, clever diversion set by Ganesh. Suddenly, the hut exploded. Shortly after, Mike's group arrived just as the hut exploded. Vijay, fearing the worst for his father, was relieved when Ganesh appeared, perfectly healthy. Vijay then introduced his new companions to his father, but as it was Mike's turn to be introduced, he suddenly collapsed. It was only then that everyone realized Mike had sustained an injury. Donnie immediately set about removing the bullet lodged in Mike's stomach, using whatever tools were available. Meanwhile, Star went to the lake to refill their water supply. At that moment, she heard rustling from the bushes behind her. Frightened, she started back to the hut, only to be held from behind. Fortunately, Donnie appeared to help. The perpetrator turned out to be a corrupt police officer, undoubtedly part of Rudra's gang. This unsettling encounter left Star traumatized, prompting her to ask Donnie to teach her how to defend herself. She realized their journey was still long, and she wanted to equip herself for future dangers. The next day, Mike finally regained consciousness, recovering remarkably quickly thanks to Donnie's aid. Without wasting any time, they resumed their escape, heading towards China. However, they soon hit a dead end. The bridge connecting the two sides of a massive ravine had not yet been constructed. Moments later, Rudra and his crew arrived at Vijay's hut, finding it deserted. Rudra was confident that Mike and his friends couldn't escape, believing they were stranded without a bridge to China. But Rudra severely underestimated Mike's resourcefulness. Mike and the others began using the powerful heavy equipment from the bridge project to cross the ravine. Simultaneously, Rudra's crew also reached the location. As a result, Mike and his friends had to move even faster, now in a desperate race against time. However, just as the bus started to move over the ravine, Vijay's father Ganesh chose not to come along. Instead, he decided to confront Rudra. Jeet, having been secured earlier, then headed towards the crane controller to stop Mike's group's movement. In the middle of this tense crossing, Mike himself was still precariously hanging on tightly to the bus body. Facing Ganesh directly, Rudra immediately accomplished his goal, brutally executing Ganesh. Then the shootout occurred. In the intense shootout, Donnie was struck by a bullet. Despite these casualties, Rudra remained unsatisfied. He ordered his men, including corrupt officer Shankar, to eliminate Vijay and his companions. Meanwhile, Mike, who had finally managed to climb up to the crane, immediately opened fire on Rudra and his crew. However, because Jeet was now controlling the crane, the bus was maneuvered back on to the same ground where Rudra and his men stood. While the others exchanged gunfire with Rudra's forces, Mike took decisive action, entering the control room to beat Jeet. After that intense battle, they finally managed to cross the ravine. However, their struggle was far from over, as Rudra and his crew also managed to cross the ravine and were now in hot pursuit of Mike's bus. Another gunfight erupted. A cliff they intended to pass through was torn down, nearly preventing the bus from entering a tunnel. Just when they thought they were safe, they encountered a roadblock of gangsters who had planted dynamite. Luckily, Mike drove the bus fast enough to evade the explosion, but their relief was short-lived, as Jeet managed to climb onto the bus and began her attack. Despite her injury, Donnie rose to confront Jeet. Simultaneously, Shankar also managed to get onto the bus, forcing Mike into a one-on-one confrontation with a corrupt officer. Vijay bravely took over the wheel. Rudra audaciously attempted to block the bus with a car. Mike relentlessly pushed the smaller vehicle towards the edge of a cliff. In a spectacular display of skill, Mike, who might appear to be just an ordinary bus driver, managed to neutralize Rudra and his men, ending their pursuit. With Rudra dead, Mike and his companions continued their journey in peace. They soon arrived in China and were greeted by Chinese soldiers guarding the border. A few days later, Vijay was seen addressing all the residents of Kadari. Stepping into the roles of his father and grandfather, he declared that the dam project, once a symbol of oppression, would now become the property of the people. The residents cheered with immense relief, celebrating that they wouldn't be forcibly evicted from their ancestral land. Having fulfilled their promise to Vijay, Mike and Donnie then moved on to their primary objective, climbing Mount Everest. After a long and challenging ascent, they successfully reached the summit. There, Mike honored his younger brother's will, scattering his brother's ashes upon the hallowed ground of Everest. At the film's conclusion, Donnie was seen taking Mike to the airport. Their parting was marked by a clear reluctance, as if an unspoken bond held them back. They eventually separated, but then Mike accidentally spotted a rope, which served as a poignant reminder of a message from his younger brother. This unexpected moment prompted Mike to cancel his return to America. He chose to stay and live in Nepal, with his newfound love, Donnie.